Thanks for joining me today on the Office 365 Past, Present and Future webinar. Today, I'm Oli Restorick, by the way. I'm joined here by Megan, who's going to be collating some of the Q&As as we go through. So if at any time you want to ask a question or ask me to elaborate on anything, I'll try my best. And if you just hit the Q&A button, Megan will collate those questions and I'll try and go through those at the end. Today, I really want to just tell you a bit of a story, really, of where Office 365 sort of came from, where we are today, and try and look a little bit into the future. Bit difficult in the later one because I'm not Microsoft. I haven't got the whole plan there. But I'll tell you some of the things that I do know that's happening in 365, some of the more recent announcements, and where things might be going there. So, very, very brief history of 365. So 365 isn't actually Microsoft's first cloud platform. So we're actually 10 years into Microsoft's cloud journey with Exchange. So in the very, very early days, Microsoft chose to host Exchange for some of their customers. So this wasn't a public thing. So it's just some of the big customers went to Microsoft and said, "Want you to explore really how you could host Exchange for us." And then in 2008, there's a business productivity online services, not a very, very catchy name, but that sort of got the Exchange Labs early things going on with SharePoint Online and Office Communication Server. So Office Communication Server, there were two versions of that. That later became Lync, and now that is Office 365 Skype for Business Online. So that's the, Skype for Business On-Prem. That's the sort of timeline for those products with online equivalents. And also Forefront Antivirus and Live Meeting were joined to make BPOS. So not a very widely adopted thing in those days at all. To be honest, I don't know anyone who really used that. I certainly didn't. I came to the journey when Office 365 was branded Office 365. So Microsoft in the early days they were taking the products they already had. They were taking the Exchange on-prem services. They were taking the SharePoint Online and Lync and adapting them to be hosted. So they were taking software that wasn't designed for the cloud scale and trying to make that host. And with some success, they sort of made it work. But the on-prem software wasn't designed to be multi-tenanted. It's designed for you install it on your own data center, and it looks after you as a customer only. And it wasn't designed to scale the types of scale that we see today with Office 365. So Office 365, as we know it today, launched mid-2011. There's been quite a few changes in terms of some of the plans that have gone there. There's some small business plans that have now disappeared. We now have business and enterprise plans. But really going back to what made 365 possible was really with Exchange. So back in, let's say, 2005-ish, Microsoft came up with a thing called PowerShell, or Monad, as it was at the time. And that was the thing that really enabled the automation to happen. So Exchange, as a product team in Microsoft, was a really early adopter of PowerShell, which enabled you to get and script all aspects of the product. So today, if at Microsoft you are developing a piece of software, it really has to be manageable by PowerShell. Having a GUI is completely optional. So that's what's really changed there. But Exchange, being such an early adopter of PowerShell, that was a really good thing for making Exchange Online work. Some of the changes to the way the actual product worked with regard to the clients, things like Auto-Discover, ActiveSync, Outlook Web App, and the Exchange Admin Center, they've also really lent themselves to Microsoft being able to do what they've done with 365. And of course, the protocol changes there. 365 would never have been possible if it was still using the old RPC straight over the network thing. It's got to go over HTTP and HTTPS today. Of course, when Exchange 2007 brought us some of the high availability features that then became DAGs, database availability groups, and that is a core building block as well for the way Exchange has worked. So really I've highlighted there the history of how Exchange Online has worked, and Exchange is a big part of Office 365, but I think without Exchange Online, Office 365 probably wouldn't have gained the traction that it's got today. And talking of traction, so Microsoft's got a thing called the annual run rate, which is basically for the annual run rate of 20.4 billion they've just announced. That was September's earnings multiplied by 12. So that's what Microsoft uses to measure there. A lot of the numbers behind Microsoft's 365 things are secret. They don't tell you how many people exactly. So there's a bit of guessing, but the run rate is legit. It's what they are. And so Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO, had set a target for the run rate to be 20 billion, and that's now been exceeded there. So it's doing better than hoped. We've got 120 million active users of Office 365 in 2017. Those are people who are actually using the product, not people who've just bought a license and never done anything with it. So Exchange, as I mentioned, is by far the largest 365 workload. When customers come to ComputerWorld, typically, to talk about 365, typically they are looking at Exchange Online as one thing. Also maybe Office apps and things like that, but really Exchange is where most people start there. In terms of competitors, so Google G Suite, which used to be Apps for Work, is really the main competitor there for doing hosted email and some of the other hosted Office type productivity apps out there. Where Microsoft wins really on this one is being able to do a hybrid approach where you've got potentially mailboxes on-prem and or online, and also having that migration method from migrating from what you've got today up to Microsoft's cloud really a lot easier than it is doing a migration to Google. And the coexistence story obviously wouldn't exist in the in Google world. So Microsoft have got worldwide data centers, including UK. So now Microsoft has got 3 UK data centers. 2 of them are geared towards 365, Office 365, that is. So if you want your data in the UK, you can do that. So Google's got European data centers. So at the moment, a lot of businesses have got to keep their data in the European Economic Area. You can do that with Google, but who knows where Brexit's going to go. It's probably a good thing for UK businesses to have their data in the UK if they can. And of course, the other Microsoft trump card is you've got the full fat client that everyone's used to alongside the web versions that competitors provide as well. So Exchange Online, as I said, is probably the number one thing people come to us for, but it's certainly not the only one. So we see people saying, I want to refresh my Office desktop licensing. And I think actually the rental model that 365 provides is better. We have had customers who say, I want to do Skype for Business. And that's the first app they've done. And they've got no plans to do anything beyond that, or no immediate plans, I should say. SharePoint as well, SharePoint Online. That's another one. So those are really the big things there. But 365 is more than just email. So we've got other products like Yammer, which is enterprise social networking. We've got Planner, which I'll come to in a second, Teams and Groups. So Teams is actually pretty new. So that's a full fat desktop client that enables you to do some of the stuff that Yammer does in terms of enterprise social networking, discussion, providing a workspace, voice over IP, video conferencing, messaging, and meetings. Groups is really an extension of distribution groups as you know them from Exchange on-prem, but adding to that, it's backed by SharePoint. So you actually get a bit of a workspace in the form of a SharePoint library behind each team. So Planner, actually, I've got Megan with me. So Planner is actually something that Megan uses to plan some of the Define Tomorrow events. So if Megan, you can just say how you use that, that'd be really good.
Yeah, so obviously in my role I have a lot of planning, what with the events, I sort of have to do all aspects of that. So anything from venue, all of our partners, making sure that everything runs smoothly on the day. So the way I use it is obviously using it almost as a checklist, making sure that I can keep up to date, but I think I use it too much, really. I rely on it a bit too much. It's almost like my Bible, really, to make sure that I have everything done. But I think one of the main benefits for me is that my manager, Barry, if he is in the office and I'm not, and he wants to know if I've actually done a job, he can log on to that, see my list, see what I've already ticked off, where I am with it. You can make notes on it. So if I can say I'm speaking to Oli about something, he can see that's whereabouts I am with it, and if I've actually completed it or not. So it's just a really good way for teams to actually keep up to date with what other people in the team are doing, where they are with a specific task, and obviously just to keep yourself very organised.
Thanks, Megan. That's really useful. So in looking at the services that Microsoft Office 365 gives you, you could really build a business case for replacing maybe some of the older legacy apps that maybe aren't doing exactly what you need them to do. So thinking of that, I was talking to a customer a couple of weeks ago who handcrafted an extranet, which basically is just document sharing out to customers. So they had a Windows Server 2008 R2 box running IIS, running local accounts to do authentication, and really all that was doing was giving access to files in a not very secure, not very scalable, not very nice way. So SharePoint Online would be an obvious, easy replacement for that. And plenty of other ways of doing it than doing legacy on-prem stuff. So yeah, if you're looking at 365, look at what you could potentially displace, what other services you could do. When we talk to customers about deploying 365, we're very much of the opinion that you should be rolling out things in a more gradual way. Don't try and launch everything in 365 all at once, because that's not going to work very well. You want to be rolling things out in a nice, progressive manner. OneDrive for Business. So you've got actually a terabyte of data per user there, accessible from all their devices, anytime, anywhere. So if you're giving users an H drive and worrying about how much space they're taking up on your file server, actually OneDrive for Business can be a pretty good replacement for that. OneDrive for Business isn't so good when you're looking at replacing shared network drives. And the replacement for that is SharePoint Online. So that's really the split there for replacing on-prem file servers. You'd use OneDrive for Business to replace your H drives, SharePoint Online there to replace the shared network drives. And one of the things that's really easy to do once you've got your data in 365 and you're using the 365 apps is co-authoring of documents. So that will work nicely in Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. So not only can you start co-authoring documents with internal staff, you can actually do that with external users. So I don't know if anyone's seen the demo there or actually tried this in practice. If another person then joins and tries to open that document, the existing user will see, let's say Barry has joined this document, and Barry then can start editing the document with me, let's say, or a PowerPoint presentation, which is really, really good. So some of the lesser known features of 365, you actually have in all the plans there Office 365 video, which is pretty much an internal YouTube channel for you to use. So if you're in the habit of uploading things to a public video site, you can actually start using that in Office 365. It's not taking space on your network, and it's nice and secure and private, which is pretty good. One of the little known things is the enterprise plans actually have a basic mobile device management platform in it. It's not got the features that you get from, let's say, AirWatch Express or Full AirWatch or Intune, but it actually does the basics there. So it can actually do a partial device wipe. So if you're currently using Outlook Mobile Access or ActiveSync to sync up your mobile devices up to Exchange or Exchange Online, actually there's a bit more there if you were to go for the enterprise plan. So we're looking at E1, E3, E5 for those plans. So Planner there, I've actually already covered that with Megan there, so that's good. There's a few other things like Find Time, which is a really good way of when you're trying to arrange a meeting or a time for a meeting with a lot of external people and you don't know their diaries, you can actually suggest some times there that might suit for a meeting, and everyone can vote on that. And then you can get suggestions for the actual times that everyone can do, which is good. Some of the plans there have an expenses option, which is pretty cool. Bookings for people, let's say doctor's appointments, or let's say you're running a campsite or anywhere where somebody is booking appointments with you. There's actually a bookings option there in 365 as well. And also Staff Hub, which is aimed at the smaller businesses. That will enable people on a shift pattern to be able to then exchange shifts, work out when they're going to be on shift, and actually manage all the bits of doing rota work and shift work. My note on that one is to check the availability in the plans, because not every plan includes those. But if any of those sound interesting, shout out to us or have a look online and see what those are, because they're not so well known. So another little known fact there is the enterprise licenses. So we're talking E1, E3, E5. They actually give you the on-prem CALs, client access licenses, for the equivalent workloads on-prem. So let's say for some reason that you really like the idea of doing Exchange Online, but SharePoint you want to keep on-prem. If you buy those enterprise licenses, you actually get the client access licenses for the equivalent features there to enable you to mix and match on-prem and cloud workloads. All you'd need to buy would be the relevant server there. So let's say if it's Exchange, you need to buy the Exchange server, but you wouldn't need to buy the Exchange cow because you already have that. Same for Skype for Business. So the other two features there, they're not really features of the product. They're actually just documents and resources there available there. There's a trust portal. So if you're worried about how Office 365 is going to help you meet regulatory or compliance issues, that's a really, really good resource that you can go and look at and see how Microsoft actually deals with whatever regulatory regime you're under. And also the roadmap. So although I'm doing a webinar here on the futures there, if you really want to know at a very fine level what's planned from Microsoft, have a look at the Office 365 roadmap. And there are hundreds of planned updates, most of them very, very small, some of them bigger. But that roadmap will tell you what Microsoft are planning and what their plan for that rollout is. And when they are launched, it will tell you how they're being rolled out to different tenants. Because when Microsoft does an update, it doesn't hit all tenants at the same time. And it won't hit all users within a tenant necessarily at the same time, depending on what feature's going on. So that'll tell you what's launched, what's rolling out, what's in development, what's cancelled. But actually, last time I looked, there weren't any cancelled ones. And it will tell you the historic rolled out ones as well. So a bit of sort of why 365. So why would you choose Office 365 over doing it all on-prem, as you're familiar with? The barriers between the traditional apps are disappearing in 365. So where you would have had an Exchange, and in a bigger company, you would have had an Exchange admin, and you would have had a SharePoint admin, and they sometimes talk to each other, sometimes not. In 365, where features actually make sense for them to cross those boundaries, they start to do that, and you'll see SharePoint content surfacing in Teams and groups, and also Outlook. So the back-end technologies are now getting really transparent to the user. The user doesn't need to know whether something's stored in SharePoint or where it's stored. And to be honest, for an admin, even in Teams and groups, you don't really need to know where that stuff is stored in terms of the technology at the back end. So Planner and 365 groups, they're features there that don't exist on-prem. So if you want that type of feature, 365 is the only way to go there. And also sharing content with external users. So once you've sort of signed up for 365 and you've got the Azure AD accounts going on, you've actually got a nice way of sharing documents with external people. So there are controls there. So if you never want to share data with the external people, you can turn that off as an administrator and not let the users do that. But if you want to empower your users to be able to share documents with external people and even do co-authoring, you have the controls there to do that. To data loss prevention and rights management, when you bolt on the Enterprise Mobility Suite, they're much, much easier. So I want to talk a little bit about rights management and some of the background on that. So Windows Rights Management came about in the Windows Server 2003 Service Pack 2 timeframe, if I remember correctly. So we're talking back in 2005 or thereabouts. So back in that time, so early 2000s, Linux was a big threat to Microsoft. And there's a guy called Brian Valentine at Microsoft who sent some quite inflammatory emails and shared a bit too much maybe about Microsoft's strategy against Linux and how basically they were going to kill it. So these emails leaked out to the press quite embarrassingly for Microsoft. And after that happened 2 or 3 times, Microsoft were then adamant that they want to put technology in place that stopped that kind of email leaking out. So they came up with a thing called Windows Rights Management Services. And what that does is it bakes encryption technologies into the actual document and into the emails and documents that exist with Exchange Server. So the way it does that, rather than encrypting the container file, and then once the application has decrypted it, the application can do whatever it wants with it. Because it's baked in, you can start restricting what users can do. So you can stop them screenshotting, you can stop them copying and pasting data out of different applications. You can set an email to only be readable by the people on the distribution list. So once it's forwarded, that's just encrypted data that nobody can read. And all the applications that sign up to work with RMS as a framework will abide by that, and they won't let the user copy that out. If they do, it's still encrypted. If you copy a data file, for instance, to a memory stick that's RMS protected, that's encrypted data. They're never going to be able to get to that unless they have the rights to do that. So really, that's about setting policies to protect information wherever that information goes. So back to the on-prem version of that, Windows Rights Management Services. I don't know of anyone outside Microsoft who actually deployed that. It's been around a long time, but it was pretty complicated. If you think about it, once you start encrypting all your documents, you need to be sure that the technology that lets you decrypt those documents is actually going to be up. So Windows RMS relies on SQL Server, for instance. You need to then make your SQL Server highly available. It relies on having a certificate revocation list for all the SSL certificates published externally. That needs to be done highly available. So all the components of that, there's a lot of moving parts, all need to be designed with availability in mind. And that's really, really difficult to do on-prem. So once Microsoft actually put this into Azure RMS and looked after all the details, looked after making all that stuff highly available so you don't need to worry, it actually becomes a really easy thing to deploy. So as of today, if you've got Office 2013, you've put in the Azure Information Protection plugin, it just works out the box. So you don't have to worry about all the back end of that. And then you can really just start using those features. So that's a very, very good way of stopping data leaking out your environment and protecting that confidential information. It will also extend to on-prem file servers. So there's a plugin there that will protect information that's stored on your on-prem file shares, which is pretty good. So just very briefly, some of the factors that can make a 365 adoption in general a bit more complicated is where you've got multi-locations or you're a multinational company. That can start to get pretty difficult in terms of where you choose your tenant to be. The tenant has to exist somewhere. So you choose when you set up a tenant, whether that's in, let's say, Western Europe, Northern Europe, UK, or whatever, or whereabouts in the world. So that's a bit of a decision there. Although, to be fair, if you're a multinational organization, designing an on-prem system to do that is also complicated. If you've got integration with other systems, let's say you have a document management system, you've got some business processes all integrating into these systems, into your on-prem, that can be a bit of a challenge there to then unpick that and start making that work with 365. A challenge, but it's all doable. If you've got poor internet links, that's often the killer there for a 365 implementation. I would say if you've got poor internet links, rather, you're going to have problems with whatever you're running, however you're running it. So there are options around doing internet failover, having an ADSL backup line, multiple internet connections, or just getting a better, beefier internet link. If you have got slow link there's some pretty good sizing tools available for Exchange Online to determine how much data is going to be put over the line by an average client, by an average Outlook client. So on the other hand, why might you not want 365? So some pretty common objections we hear is you can't depend on the cloud or the internet. So yep, it's true in a lot of cases that the provider may go bust, your internet connection may go down. Those are all pretty valid reasons. Microsoft isn't going to go anywhere. Microsoft have made a huge investment in making the cloud work, and it really seems to be paying off. I don't think Microsoft are regretting that one bit. Cloud services are immature, we hear. In some ways, yes, maybe. So in the early days of cloud, a lot of people who had an existing product, product that had some sort of software as a service element to it, heard cloud as the buzzword, and basically just reprinted their brochures with the word cloud on the front and changed nothing about how their product worked. So cloud's one of these horribly abused terms that can mean anything to anyone. Cloud, as I see it, is having that scalability, that economies of scale going on there. So if you're a third-party provider and you're just providing a cloud service based on a server in someone else's data center, I would say that isn't cloud. 365 is a very, very mature product. It's been around since 2011 and been very, very reliable at it. Are they insecure? So if you feel secure in having the data is in a server room downstairs and you can see it, can you really? Once you've got a hacker inside your environment, so Microsoft say that an intruder into an environment can be there up to 200 days on average before you actually notice they're there. So just having something on-prem as a security blanket is really a bit of a false economy. So Microsoft invest a lot of R&D into keeping that stuff secure. A lot of people, a lot of servers. There's a lot going on there. I would say if you think you've got better security than Microsoft, you almost certainly haven't, but you're probably not doing the research they're doing. Probably, no, you're not. So on-prem providing better service to the company. I probably don't think that's true either. So, sorry, 1 second. Sorry, bear with me a second. So if you're delivering a service there and you're trying to keep up and you're just trying to keep the lights on, you're probably not concentrating very much on delivering new services, delivering what the user actually wants. You're probably there keeping the lights on in the back room. Really, today's IT is about asking the users and the business what they need to be doing and implementing that, and spending less time keeping the lights on and doing the commodity stuff at the back end, and more time talking to the users and delivering new features. So 365 is delivering new features day in, day out. If you look at the roadmap that I mentioned earlier, you've got new features coming in all the time. You haven't got these great big humps of doing, let's say, Exchange 2013 to 2016 upgrades. You haven't got this rolling upgrade process every few years. Losing control when you move to Office 365, in a sense, yes, you do. But I would argue you're losing control of things that don't really matter that much in a lot of senses. These are commodity products. Most organizations are using 365 in similar ways. I wouldn't worry too much about losing a degree of control. Yeah, you lose control over what your servers are called because you're not running the servers. You don't get control over how mailboxes are laid out in Exchange Online, for instance. But these are details that Microsoft is just managing and automating away. So, quick slide there into the future there. What's going to happen? It's really only going to get bigger. So Microsoft are expecting that more than 70% of the Exchange install base by 2019 is going to be in Exchange Online. And I think that's probably quite believable. There's still going to be Exchange on-prem. You'll still be able to buy that. And the interesting thing is Exchange on-prem is actually just Office 365's Exchange Online being boiled down every now and again into a product. So Microsoft are developing Exchange now to run Exchange Online. They're not developing it to put it in a box and send it out on a CD anymore. So there's new authentication methods. This is actually not future. This is actually available today. So as of the Microsoft Ignite conference back in September, pass-through authentication and seamless single sign-on became available. So they're new authentication methods that really get around a little problem that that existed up until now in terms of the way authentication worked. So you had two choices really when you did authentication with 365 and an on-prem environment. You could either just sync your Active Directory passwords up to the cloud, or you can use a thing called ADFS, which for the most part is horribly overcomplicated, needs a lot more server resource and a lot more skill to implement. So these are nice, simple technologies there that can, in a lot of cases, replace ADFS. So if you're in a situation now, you're thinking you might need ADFS, talk to us, because probably pass-through authentication and seamless single sign-on can do what you need in a better way. So we got older Office versions dropping out of support. So one of the interesting things Microsoft announced fairly quietly last year is they want to phase out on-prem versions of Office being able to talk to Office 365. That isn't going to happen overnight. So at the moment, our guideline is to use a version of Office that is in mainstream support. So mainstream support means that Office 2007 has gone. That's gone out of extended support as well. Office 2010 is outside mainstream support. Although Office 2010 will talk to 365 for the most part, it's now outside mainstream support, and you want to be phasing out any Office 2010 that you have talking to 365. Going forward in the next couple of years, Microsoft are going to tighten that up a bit further there. So only if you've got really the latest version or the previous version are you going to be able to talk to the 365 services. So one of the things that's been really difficult with an Exchange hybrid organization, such as what ComputerWorld typically do, is getting rid of that last on-prem Exchange server. So a lot of customers, when they come to us and say, I want to do Exchange online, they're really excited because they think they can get rid of all their Exchange servers. And the truth is, if you're synchronizing your on-prem AD up to 365, you actually are going to need one Exchange server on-prem to remain to do the management pieces. And the reason for that is Exchange Online and Exchange rely on the attributes in the Active Directory that only the Exchange management tools can edit at the moment. So at Ignite, Microsoft announced a way they're going to actually tackle this and let you decommission that last on-prem Exchange server. And the way they do that is to have the management actually in 365 writing back to your on-prem AD, presumably through the AAD Connect tool. That's the most likely way that's going to manifest itself. Feature's still in development. I don't think it's hit beta yet. You can't go and play with those bits yet, but that's a big plan of Microsoft's to be able to do that. With a hybrid organization of Exchange, better integration of calendars and delegation. That's often a sticking point when we have some mailboxes on-prem and some mailboxes in 365, is actually how delegation and calendar sharing works. At the moment, not too smooth, and Microsoft are working really hard now to make that a smoother process there. In general, there's going to be new services, new ways of doing things. There's been a lot of new features like the planner and little apps that Microsoft have brought into 365. That's going to really continue. Cloud-first development. So Microsoft historically built software to ship on CD or USB stick or ISO download for you to then install. So the way that's changing now is Microsoft are developing first for the cloud. So SharePoint, Exchange, all the big products they're being developed to run in 365. And then they get boiled down into an on-prem version that you can install. And they'll turn that into Exchange 2016, 2018, 2019, whatever's next. Microsoft also have announced some more data sovereignty controls for multinationals. So I said earlier, when you set up a 365 tenant, you choose where that can be. Going forward, you can expect to see the ability to maybe have mailboxes in different countries, depending where those users are, but part of one organization. So that's going to get a lot better. Teams and Skype. So Teams is really about collaboration and Skype is about communication. So Teams is a pretty new product. I think it only shipped earlier this year in 2017. Those are going to start coming together. So features will drift over between the two products and they will eventually merge and become one thing. That's going to take about 2 years or so. So if we look at the pattern of naming for Skype for Business, so it's Office Communication Server to start with, 2 versions, Link, 2 versions, Skype for Business, 2 versions, and we'll do a name change. So who knows what the name change will be. I think if you go into the tenant, it's the Teams and Skype for Business admin center. I suspect the branding will change there. It might be Teams, it might be Skype, who knows. And the other change that was announced relatively recently was a SKU called Microsoft 365. So that was combining there of Windows license per user, the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite, and Office 365. So if you want to buy all 3 of those in one line item, you can actually do that. And the Windows license per user brings out some really interesting features there, which they're not 365, so I won't spend too long going on about them. A thing called Windows Autopilot is enabled by that, where a PC can be shipped directly to an end user from the OEM, from Dell, from a shop, or whatever. They type in their work credentials, and it will then start deploying the Enterprise Edition of Windows. It will deploy your enterprise apps. It will BitLocker the device and then store the key securely. So some pretty cool stuff there in Microsoft 365. So I invited you earlier to ask some Q&As. I don't think we have any. So if anyone's got a last minute question and answer. Looking a bit quiet on that front. I'll hang on for a bit. So if nobody's got any questions, then thanks very much for listening. So I'm Ollie. Those are my details. Sorry, one sec. I'm Ollie. These are my details here. If you want to follow me on Twitter, that's my Twitter handle. If you want to drop me a follow-up question on email, I've got my email address there. And also, if you're not following the Define Tomorrow Twitter feed, please do that and look at the Define Tomorrow blog at definetomorrow.co.uk.
So it looks like we have got one question from John Luce, who said, what other plans are there for auditing features?
Okay, so auditing features. So it's difficult there to know exactly what you're getting up there, but if you're looking at auditing and e-discovery, I think probably you're getting maybe at the e-discovery features in the products there. There is a security and auditing portal in there. So some of the old features have moved out of Exchange. So whereas Exchange Online had its own auditing features, SharePoint had its own auditing features, they've actually moved to a security and compliance center. So if you want to look at the security and compliance center within 365, I think that's where you'll find the features you may be looking for. But if you've got a specific question, if you follow up by email, that'd be really good. Okay. I think that's it. Thank you very much.